in the seventh inning. Jeff Passan from ESPN every Tuesday, and that includes today. Jeffrey, good morning. How and where are you?
I am well, and I am in Kansas City right now, actually.
Okay, so you weren't there last night. You were watching. What did you think happened? Why aren't the Mariners in the World Series today?
The Mariners not in the World Series for a number of reasons, and we can go back to previous games and missed opportunities and starting pitching foibles and bullpen maneuvers that didn't go correctly, and that latter category is really, to me, what sealed Game 7. And it is a decision, the one to bring in Edward Bizzardo, that is going to haunt this franchise until it makes and wins its World Series. Because while I understand wanting to go to a reliever there after Brian Wu gave up a pair of hits to start the inning, you had one of the best closers in baseball waiting. You had him on 2 days rest. You had him capable of going multiple innings. You had 8 outs to get to the World Series. And I'm sorry, but when you've got 8 outs and a bullpen that includes Andres Munoz, Matt Brash, Gabe Spire, and others, you do not use Edward Bizzardo in that situation, regardless of how many times you have used him in the 7th inning before. It was a distinct lack of acknowledging the leverage of the situation and, frankly, a sort of move that I would think a manager would have made 10 or 15 years ago. But the vast majority of managers these days understand that sometimes the most important outs in the game are not in the 9th inning, they're in the 7th. And in this case, getting those outs and bringing in a strikeout pitcher and somebody who has not faced George Springer all series, as opposed to someone who had faced him multiple times already, would have been the right thing to do. But Dan Wilson did not do it, and the Mariners are paying with the end of their season.
Do you want to hear Dan's answer as to why? Did you hear any of that?
I heard it. Yeah, I heard it. I just don't agree with it. And it's easy for me to be sitting here from the comfort of my couch and not in the moment, understanding everything and saying that it was the right thing. I just don't think the logic holds up very well. And I think Ryan Divish did a fantastic job in his story in the Seattle Times today of breaking down everything. And, Dan Wilson said he wanted a different look. And that's fine. I totally understand a different look, but your different look has to be different. It just cannot be the same guy who brought in, a guy who, at the end of the day, as much as Edward Bizzardo did this year and as good as he was, you cannot lose a game without your best guy in there. And that's what the Mariners did, plain and simple.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of that, and we've been having some of that conversation here this morning. Let's try to play devil's advocate for a moment. I'll take the other side. Bear in mind that I've kind of been saying exactly what you've been saying this morning, but let me play the other side. Is it possible that some of those other arms weren't in as good a shape heading into that you're looking at it and you get your report from the bullpen and they say, hey, Munoz may not have pitched yesterday, but he's throwing 96 and he's not going to is it possible that they have some more information that we don't?
Absolutely, it's possible. That being said, in no universe do I look at a good Edward Bizzardo on the same level as an okay Andres Munoz. I'm always going to go with the guy who has been there in the toughest situations in the past. And I just look, if Andres Munoz comes in and does what he did in the 8th inning, gives up back-to-back singles. The game is tied. There are still runners on first and third. It's a hairy situation at this point. But at least you went down with your best guy pitching in the most important spot. That, to me, is the most egregious part of this whole thing. It's that when you were presented with a scenario that could make or break your season, you did not go with a guy who you want to be in there when your season can be made or broken.
Is it possible that decision was not just Dan's?
Who else's would it be?
Just, we hear a lot going into these games that this is the way it's going to be set up, and this is the way these pockets are going to go, and this is, the direction I want you to go, and making some of those decisions. Is it possible that it is an organizational decision at that point?
Yeah, I suppose so. I don't know that for certain, but the organization relies on the manager to make the best decision in a particular moment. And the manager needs support. He needs support from Manny Acta, his bench coach. He needs support from Pete Woodworth. He needs support from Trent Blank, the pitching coach and pitching strategist. Like, all of them have ideas, and I don't know how much Dan Wilson is listening or taking into account those ideas, but there need to be voices there that make the best decisions. And it's hard. Like, it's really hard in the moment to know and to understand what the right thing to do is. This one didn't seem very hard to me.
You know what this comes down to, Jeff? It's a term that we use in football a lot, and this is where I do think the two sports intersect. They don't many times. They're totally different XY axis, but this would be the middle point of it. Everything I hear you saying. And I've said this myself, as many analysts do up in the booth in big moments. Players, not plays. Players, not plays. Don't give me the cutest little scheme. Don't give me what you think is the greatest play in the world. Get the ball to my best player in this moment. And I think I hear you saying that pretty clearly here with Munoz.
Yeah, I think that covers it perfectly, actually. And that's the hardest part of this whole thing to reconcile. It is going to be an eternal what if. What if Munoz came into that game, punched out George Springer, got out of the situation, or even, hell, he gave up a single, and it's tied, and there's still life. And this team that went 15 innings the last time that it needed to win a game has the chance to do that again, and knows what that feels like. It's different playing from behind. I'll say that much. When you have 6 outs left and you have a run to score, the pressure is on every single pitch, and we saw it in the 9th inning. I mean, Jeff Hoffman, who had thrown 35 pitches the day before and who was back out there in the highest leverage moment, struck out the side. And you just don't see the Mariners, especially the guys who punched out. Leo Rivas does not strike out a lot. I suppose he did yesterday, but Julio Rodriguez does. But man, the pitches that he was swinging at there, it was a really, especially with Cal Raleigh on deck, it was a really unfortunate way to end the season, because all he had to do was take, and suddenly there's a base runner there, and you have no idea what's going to happen, but the guy that you want at the plate is going to be the one who's coming up.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and I would, it's hard to kill Julio after the game. I mean, he was half the reason they had those runs with the double and the home run.
I was going to say, I don't sit here and blame Julio Rodriguez for this. Julio, like, if you go and look at this series, guys, Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, and Josh Naylor were all awesome.
Yep.
I think there were 5 players in both LCSs who had OPSs of over 1,000, and 3 of them were Mariners.
Wow,
so
that's amazing.
They got production out of their best players, and you love to see that, but
they did not with the other role players, right? I mean, that's the thing about Toronto is, my goodness gracious,
their role players stepped up. The Mariners role players did not.
They're so deep, and it's guys like Ernie Clement who can get you to World Series as much as the Julio Rodriguez's and Cal Raleigh's of the world. It's Nathan Lucas, and it's just 1 through 9 what the Blue Jays have. It's really impressive, and you guys saw it. The way they put the ball in play, man. Like, it's a thing, and I think it's a thing to the extent that it scares the Dodgers a little bit. And I'm not sure how much of what the Mariners do would have scared the Dodgers. Maybe the capability of their starting pitching. Certainly the Raleigh-Rodriguez combination at the top of the lineup. Those things would have gone a long way, but the Blue Jays, they play wonderful fundamental baseball. They catch it, they put the ball in play, and they've got thunder in the bats. And it's a pretty rare combination of skills, actually, that they have, and the reason that today they are the American League champions.
It's funny, and looking at some of the guys, I was saying this earlier, at the bottom of the lineup, they're 7-8-9 versus the Mariners 7-8-9 during the regular season. Mariners guys had better numbers, better OPS plus across the board. All three Mariners had higher OPS than all three of the Blue Jays guys, but obviously did not look that way here in the ALCS. So help me with something, Jeff. Brock will tell you, my wife will tell you, I'm a verbal processor. So sometimes I need to talk through ideas in order to get to a conclusion. So as you were talking and throughout the morning this morning, it's kind of gotten me thinking about something. So help me kind of work through this. You said about the decision to go to Bizzardo that it was a move that would have been made 10 or 15 years ago. I tend to agree with you. As I think about the Mariners and a lot of their philosophy, I wonder if I'm watching a team that is caught in between modern and older philosophies and trying to find the right balance between them. Certainly over the last 7 games, I heard John Smoltz give a treatise on the importance of playing baseball the way it used to be played back when he played, and the importance of not striking out. I don't know that I agree with him, but the Mariners do strike out a lot, and they hit a lot of home runs, and they walk a lot. In fact, they've walked more than anyone else in the postseason. But there's this idea that, hey, they bunted in the second inning. Like that to me is a version of baseball from the 1980s, but you're putting that in, and if you're doing it all the time and you've got the right players to do it, I guess I understand, but they don't. They've got players that are built more towards the 3 true outcome deal. You've got, trying to determine in some games it was take the pitcher out quickly, and that's what they did in this one with the starter who comes out after 4 innings. But then you don't play it in the modern way later. You go back to an older philosophy of bringing in Bizzardo rather than Munoz or Miller or Brad or whatever other option you want to go to. Is there some friction point here between old and new philosophies?
I think that there can be a marriage of it, Mike. I don't think that there necessarily has to be we are going to fully invest in this new way of thinking, or we are going to fully go to the old. Like the blend of the two, I didn't find the bunt to be particularly egregious. I thought it was going to be a low-scoring game. Right, my prediction going into the game was Mariners 3, Blue Jays 2. So I was close-ish on the score.
Wow, dude, I will disagree with you for the next 2 hours if you want. Bunting to set up your 8 and 9 hitters hitting a combined 100 in the second inning seems to me to be the most egregious mistake made in the game, but that's, I guess, a topic for another day. I hated the bunt.
That's fine. J.P. Crawford was also hitting like 100 in the series. And the idea that you're going to be able to get a fly ball, a run-scoring fly ball, I think is a realistic thing in that situation. But I understand it is the 8-9 hitters. That's totally fair. I personally just do not mind playing for a run if you think it's going to be a low-scoring game, especially like when you're facing the pitchers that you are. Like I just. Shane Bieber is not going to be the overwhelming dominant type of guy. And I think we saw that with the hook that he got yesterday. But going back, this reminded me, when I say 10 or 15 years ago, it reminded me of a game, I think it was in 2014. And, Ned Yost with the Royals had brought in Kelvin Herrera in a specific situation, and the game I believe was lost. And somebody asked him, I remember after the game, why did you choose Kelvin Herrera there? And he said, I don't remember it was the 6th or the 7th inning, but he said either he's our 6th inning guy or he's our 7th inning guy. In the postseason, you don't have guys who are assigned 2 innings. You can't. You have to look at the game as if there are 27 outs, and depending on the situation, those outs are going to be worth more or less. They are going to be of higher or lower value, and you're never going to get a higher value point than having both runners to tie the game on base and the winning run, or the go-ahead run, rather, at the plate. And that's what the Mariners had, and they made a 2015 decision.
I thought you were going to go 2016 because I've heard that comp earlier of Buck Showalter not finding a way to get Zach Britton into that game.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's interesting, and I'll probably end up writing about this tonight as I'm talking through it. You know, there is an element, this game could be 2003 Grady Little, and you don't go to, you know, your relievers, and instead you leave Pedro in, and the next year, team wins the World Series. It could be the 2012 Seahawks, who were 31 seconds away from beating Atlanta, fall in horrible fashion, and the next year win the Super Bowl. It could be one of those situations. It could also be the 2017 Orioles, who went 75 and 87 and finished in dead last a year after not using Zach Britton in the postseason. So there doesn't seem to be a good indication of what happens next. If you are in the Mariners front office, what are you spending your offseason focusing on?
Let me just say this, and I think this is a really important thing for Mariners fans to hear today. This feels like a beginning, not an end. And we have seen teams that have dynastic aspirations reach this point and go backward. I don't see that with the Mariners, though. I see this being the beginning of the best run in the history of this franchise. And look, for all that we think that Colt Emerson can be, and Johnny Farmello can be, and Kate Anderson, and Ryan Sloan, and Gerangelo Saintja, and Laz Montes, and Felnine Celestin, and Michael Arroyo, and on and on and on and on. There are going to be some guys who succeed, and there are going to be some guys who fail. But the sheer number of really good prospects that the Mariners have lead me to believe that they're going to be in this position again. And I'm not saying every year it's going to be the Mariners in the ALCS the same way it's been every year the Astros are in the ALCS, but I think they're going to have, within the next 5 years, multiple cracks at it. And it's going to happen. I know it doesn't feel good today. I know it's hard to even think about when there's pain, but it is going to happen. This team is too well set up for it not to. In the meantime, though, what do they need to do? I mean, the right side of their infield, 3/4 of their infield are free agents, right? So they need to figure out who's going to be their first baseman, who's their third baseman. I suppose you could slide in Cole Young at second base, or maybe Emerson or Arroyo emerges at that spot. But, they're going to need to add at least one power bat. And I don't know if that's re-signing Josh Naylor, re-signing Eugenio Suarez, re-signing both.
I'll say this, Jeff.
If you ran this team back with a little bit extra help in the bullpen, I feel pretty damn good about things.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine this team in this next 5 years, though, without Naylor. And I don't think I'm prisoner to the moment. And I don't even think it's about necessarily what he does with his stealing bases or his bat or his first. I think it's about him, who
Attitude.
he is. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
I don't want to imagine, honestly. I don't want to. Polanco, that would sting a little bit. Suarez, beloved. But, this is baseball, and you got reinforcements coming. I cannot imagine, Jeff, watching every game as passionately as we watch these games here, and what that dude meant over the final 60 games. I just can't imagine what this looks like, because they don't have anybody in the system like him that's coming up as a first baseman or anything. And I don't want to imagine what this team looks like without him.
Yeah, and it's going to cost, but the Mariners have room to pay.
Yep.
And I am with you wholeheartedly. He has fit hand in glove good with this team, and the skill set aligns with what the Mariners need. The position aligns with what the Mariners need. More than that, though, the attitude does. And Josh Naylor, to anyone who's watching him, is not rooting for the team whose uniform he's wearing, can be a tired act. But when he's one of those guys who, when he's on your team, damn, are you glad he is on your team?
You told us a couple weeks ago that this World Series could be a referendum on baseball. The people will be watching it with the Milwaukee payroll and the Dodgers payroll, and you end up looking up and what the Dodgers' biggest payroll in the NL, or the Blue Jays the highest payroll in the American League. I mean, it's 250 something.
They're not the highest. I think they're second.
Okay. Does that resonate? Is that going to be a conversation point? Is that going to be a sticky, contentious point for baseball at large, that these two immensely high payroll teams are the two left standing?
I think more so if the Dodgers win. I mean, if the Blue Jays win, it's the first time the franchise has won a World Series in 32 years. Like, that's what you're looking for. And the fact that they're there now, the first time they've been there, just adds another team to the ledger in the argument that the union makes, which I think is a fairly sound argument, which is that a lot of teams have made it to the World Series in spite of the Dodgers, seemingly monopolizing the National League in recent years. So, yeah, it's going to be there, and the payroll issue is always part of this conversation. But I think the Dodgers winning it, becoming the first team in Major League Baseball in a quarter century to go back-to-back, and doing so with $500 million spent on players, in a time where there are some organizations that have $75 million payrolls, when in the NLCS they faced a Milwaukee team that had a payroll a quarter of their size, in the World Series even, where Toronto is about half as much. Like, there's a distinct difference. It's a lot, and the part of it, I think the part of it for fans that's most frustrating is that, by and large, the Dodgers haven't spent any completely frivolous money. Now, Michael Conforto, not good. Tanner Scott, not good. Those are two guys who are making $18 million a year. If the Mariners ever signed someone for $18 million and he performed as poorly as Conforto or Scott has to this point, would be an absolute outrage.
I mean, the $15.5 million they spent on Mitch Haniger not to play this year would probably come into. Hey, real quick, last thing, and I know we have to go, you have to go. So this is a 10-second answer. Just since you were talking about this, did the Blue Jays beat the Mariners because of a higher payroll?
No.
I didn't feel that way either, but I get a lot of criticism for not feeling that way, so I was curious what you think.
I'll say this, man.
Not when it was Barger and Clement and those guys doing damage at the bottom, right?
If they get to the Dodgers bullpen, man, these Blue Jays freaking hit. They can hit.
Yeah, they do.
Yes, they do. And it for Fox's hope, they hope it's a legitimate series, and we'll see if they can get to that bullpen and make a pay.
All right, Jeffrey.
Last night.
Thanks, man. We appreciate it. I don't know if we get to talk or not next week. Hopefully we do, but this has been just, again, bottom of the heart, legitimate, pure, huge thank you for all of the hits over the course of the season. It just makes going through the baseball season so much more fun and so much more interesting. Love talking to you, love debating with you, love listening to you, love learning from you, and I think I speak for all of us when I just give you a big hearty thank you.
Goes both ways. This is one of my favorite things to do on the job, and I appreciate you guys letting me up every week.